Join us as we look to discover what lurks from behind tall trees.
And we are live.
What's up, Mike?
Not much. To everyone else, thank you for tuning in to another episode of From Behind Tall Trees. We are the online super chat that doesn't play favorites while aiming to stomp out confirmation bias and general Sasquatch stupidity. This is a show where everyone has a chance to speak their mind, present their evidence, and tell their story while allowing you, the viewer, decide what is and isn't real. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, leave your comments, and check our group out on Facebook, the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective. If you're feeling extra generous tonight, hit that donate button. All contributions go towards supporting this growing channel, along with our collective's investigations and productions. For those of you who don't know, I'm Mike Luci of the CARC, joined by my partner in crime, John Chuck Larson. So, Chuck, we are veering a little off the beaten path that we usually take tonight, while the show primarily revolves around the Bigfoot phenomena. We here at From Behind Tall Trees and the CARC do acknowledge there are other strange beings supposedly lurking in the woods and shadows of the world. So, regardless of where we individually stand on what may or may not exist, as I said earlier, this is a show where everyone has a chance to speak their mind while letting you decide what is and isn't real. Tonight, we'll be talking about a different bipedal being, one I'm sure a good amount of you are familiar with, elaborately referred to as an upright canid, but more commonly referred to as Dogman. To guide us down this rabbit hole, we are very fortunate to have one of the more pertinent figures studying this particular phenomena with us. He's an author, longtime researcher, and founder of the North American Dogman Project. We're very excited to have JOEDY Cook with us tonight.
There he is.
There he is.
How you doing?
Hey, Jody, how are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
So, listen, JOEDY, before we start, I hope you don't mind. I first, obviously, just want to thank you for your service to this country. We're
thank you.
Extremely grateful for the sacrifices you guys make. So it's always good to be reminded of that. So just wanted to start off with that little tribute. So thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Actually, that's a great time for cheers. And we cheers them.
Absolutely.
Here's to you.
There you go.
3 different drinks. So normally when people start bringing up things, other phenomena like, Dogman and things like that, that's usually when people start, me personally, start to lose me. Mainly because, it's something I really haven't quite delved into. I'm not really too familiar with the whole phenomena. So that's why I'm glad we have you, here with us tonight. So, why don't you start? Yeah. So why don't you start a little bit by just telling us about, what the North American Dogman Project is, what you guys do, what you guys have been up to lately.
Mm-hmm. Well, the North American Dogman Project we are the largest dogman research organization on planet Earth. Honestly, there's no other organization out there that does that we do. There's a lot more smaller groups, but there's no organization out there that as big as we are. We have 700 members plus worldwide. We have a lot of field investigators worldwide that we get reports coming in from all over the world to our organization. We have chapters here in the United States. We have them in Canada. We have them in South America, Australia, New Zealand. We have them in Europe, the United Kingdom. We have them in India. We have 2 in Africa. So we're getting reports all over the world of these creatures. We do have a chain of command structure set up. You have your field researchers. You have your specialized teams. Then you have your regional directors along with your state representatives and so forth and so forth and so forth. So our organization is set up to we want to make it as professional as possible. So we have a field manual that we go by. We have reports. There's like certain reports you have to fill out before you even hit the field just to protect yourself and protect the organization. So we have a structure that we go by. A lot of organizations don't Dogman or even Bigfoot organizations don't even, do any of that stuff. So, but we've been, like I said, we've been around since 2006, and we're growing and growing. We're getting recognized by a lot of good people. We're getting recognized by a lot of government agencies too. Our website, which is kind of interesting, our website company we go through, contacted us and, it said, are you guys doing anything you're not supposed to be doing, because you're having a lot of government agencies monitoring your site that's on your site. So we get a report each month, and it tells who's been on our site. I'm not talking like somebody, IP address who's sitting at home, but something for like a corporation or a government agency or something large that shows up. And we've had, like I said, just about every single government agency monitor our site, that's been on our site a couple times a week. Department of the Army, Air Force, Marine, Navy. Could it be the government watching what we're doing, or could it be somebody on a government computer sitting at home or sitting at work at lunch and browsing the site? It could, So I'm surprised we got the recognition that we've got as quick as it has.
For sure. And just to clarify, I'm probably gonna use Bigfoot, Sasquatch, just as a relative, just like for context with the stuff, just because I'm not too
familiar. No, that's fine.
I remember when we chatted, the research I did on you. You originally, when you got into the 14 field, you originally were a Bigfoot researcher, correct?
I did Bigfoot research, and I did UFO research prior to Dogman. Yeah.
How'd you make the jump? How'd you make the jump from Bigfoot and UFOs to upright?
Well, I was a UFO. I did UFO research years before I got into the Bigfoot stuff. This is like going back into the 80s and going into the 90s, and doing UFO research, getting a lot of reports of Bigfoot connected to UFO sightings. Okay. I found the subject to be fascinating, looked into it, fell in love with it, absolutely fell in love with it. And it was a really big passion for years. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. But as time's going on, the field got really political. I mean, really political. And it just got to the point, it just got tired of it, because it turned out to be a clique, a members only society. If you didn't have the right last name, you weren't speaking at conferences, things like that, And one day I was just going through all my files, looking at some of the old cases, and I found a bunch of them that were Bigfoot sightings that were Bigfoot that had a snout, high pointed ears, legs like a dog. And I'm like, well, these are Dogman sightings, what these people are seeing. So I delved in, going through all my files, hundreds and hundreds of files, and picking out all the ones that were like that. And I'm like, man, there's something to this. So I just, I found it to always be a fascinating subject, and nobody was really into it. Okay. A lot of people weren't even looking into the Dogman stuff. So I decided to go to it, and I fell in love with it. And I enjoy it to this day. I think it's one of the most excited cryptids out there to study.
So do you think this is more of a what's your take on it? Do you think it's more like flesh and blood? Do you think it has like supernatural elements, extraterrestrial? Where do you stand on that?
Well, there's a lot of supernatural aspect to Dogman. It's a flesh and blood, okay, but there's a lot of supernatural aspect to this. There's also extraterrestrial aspect to it. We get reports. I say, out of a whole, 60% is close to supernatural, and the rest are flesh and blood, and just a few percent is extraterrestrial. But it's all connected. It's all connected. So the best way to describe this, when you talk about supernatural, you're dealing with people that say they communicate with these telepathy. They saw them come out of portals. They saw like a blue light or a different color light flash on and off before or after a sighting, something to that effect, or it just disappeared. So it's considered supernatural, but also the part of it being flesh and blood, because see, animals, their coats are designed to blend in to the environment. It's how many times if you've been out in the woods and a deer ran out in front of you real quick that was there and you didn't see it, or a rabbit or something like that, because their coat blends in. And when these things disappear, they didn't really disappear. They just kind of like blend in to the environment. So is that considered supernatural? It just depends on how you want to look at it.
I guess, sorry, I keep on clicking my mic. I guess it also depends too how one defines supernatural.
Right.
Like the way I define it is, paranormal is something that's not understood by science. Supernatural, something that's just outright beyond our understanding. But no, I could relate though with just how certain animals, their coat, their coats and things like that are designed to blend in nature. That happened. It happens. What happens to me all the friggin' time. So I think it's something that people definitely don't take into consideration. When they go down these rabbit holes. Chuck, I know you had a few questions you wanted to get, and I kept on cutting you off. Sorry about that.
No, it's no worries. You actually answered a couple of them actually, but the correlation between Bigfoot and Dogman and the UFOs. But I mean, like with witnesses, when they come up to you, obviously you have an open mind with it. But I mean, what are some of the more wild incidents or witnesses that you've had to deal with or listened to?
The biggest really is where people are talking about transformation. Okay. That is just one of the ones that just we don't really want to deal with. We'll talk to them. We're not just going to ignore them. But people honestly believe that these things move from one organism to another, and it's just totally impossible. It doesn't happen that way. We have other cases where they're just so far out there that the witnesses, you kind of believe them, because it's just how they're telling the story. It's like, we give you a perfect example. There was this was a good old boy, and he was down in Kentucky, and he goes, man, I love to hunt. I'm always out there hunting. He's going rumbling about all these deers that he's got. And, he just kind of goes off the subject talk, and it's like, okay, well, let's go back to your sighting. Oh yeah. He goes, I'm out in the woods. Right. So I see this deer, and then there was another deer, and I'm like, well, which one I want to get? Which one's kind of bigger and stuff. So I hear something coming from the back of me. So I'm thinking, okay, there's another deer coming around. So I'm going to be real still. He said this werewolf. He said, man, this thing was like out of a movie, standing right next to me, looking at the deer. And I'm looking at me, and I'm looking at it. And I have my rifle in a position where it's up. And he said this thing kind of got close and kind of like pointed his finger out at this deer, like he wanted me to shoot that one. And he goes, listen, I drink, but I wasn't drinking that day. Okay. And he goes, I shot the deer. And he said he walked over and grabbed the deer and walked off, and it was just, it's like one of these stories. It's like, man, it's probably believable because this guy, I mean, it's just the way he was saying it. And it's just, I mean, you got a really good vibe.
Right.
This guy, it's just, he just the way he was talking, the way he was just, rambling. It was like, man, I want to go out and have a beer with this guy because he probably was fun being drunk, and it was just one of these things. But, crazy things happen like that, and so you kind of get stories like that. But, we still talk to the witnesses. We're not going to shove them off because maybe it's just it's because it's outlandish doesn't mean maybe it didn't actually happen.
Now, because we've heard of a couple dogman witnesses come up to us, when we did, a couple of different conferences, and a couple of them have said that they've seen them like run on all fours across
Right.
the road, and I'm like, well, wouldn't that be a timber wolf? I mean, but what So now you think it's like an overgrown timber wolf, or I mean, you guys touched on.
The thing of it is that a dog man, the characteristics of a dog man is much different from your typical wolf. Okay, yeah, this thing does go down on all fours. It's able to move faster on all fours, but it's able to walk. Okay, now in a lot of sightings, when this thing goes from all fours up to two legs, there's like a popping sound that people hear. And the theory behind that is that there's a different set of joints that the leg sockets are popping into in order for it to stand erect. Okay, things cannot stand erect for a very long time because they don't have butts. They don't have the muscle in their butts to stand erect. That's why gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, they don't have butts. So that's why they can't stand erect, because they just don't have that muscle in their butt to hold their back up. So it's the same thing with these creatures. Yeah, they are able to move on two legs, but they're faster and probably more comfortable on two legs, or four legs rather.
So then, what do they have? Now, do they have paws, like four paws, or is it like hands?
A lot of the characteristics, their back paws are very same as a dog. Their front paws are very what they consider human, because the toes are much longer, and it does have opposable thumb which is a little bit further up. So, and where it has a what do they call that? Where it's able to grasp, where it can grasp and hold on to, and the elbows, where it's able to, the arms are able to rotate, and the elbows where it's able to come up and move like this. Now, most dogs cannot put their arms out like this. Right. Because their body's not set that way, because how their sockets are set up against their rib cage. Well, in this case, that their rib cage and upper body is very much more like a human, and it most likely does have another set of sockets where it's able to go from this to this, and that's where you're getting the popping sounds from.
And then as far as like the face, like the snout, but the ears, now I'm picturing like a German Shepherd ear. I mean, like what? There's like different types of ears, because we had a witness show us a picture from New York State of this thing that was sitting in like a wire of a tree, and we actually Mike and I went to the tree and checked it out. And it's a pretty substantial tree, and the wire was pretty big. So whatever was in the in between the two branches, I mean, it definitely wasn't a raccoon, but the ears were almost like they were like kind of almost like Rottweiler ears,
right?
Almost. You know what I mean? So it's kind of is there different types of, obviously there's supposedly different types of Sasquatches all over the country between the grassman and the skunk ape and the one living in New Jersey. So is there like different types of dogman?
There is. They're different. Yeah, they're different breeds of it. You have some that look more like a canine, a German Shepherd, Husky mix, wolf. Then you have some that look a lot like a hyena characteristics, and some like a baboon characteristics.
Baboon.
Yeah, the beast of the land between the lakes. Excuse me. That particular creature has, I think there's more than one there, because there's a lot of characteristics people are seeing of one that is definitely canine and characteristics, and then one that is very much into similar to like a mixture between a baboon and a hyena, because it has like a mane, up on the head and up on the shoulders, where it's much more hairier than it is the rest of the body, kind of like how a baboon is, but the facial characteristics is somewhat of a hyena.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, to be truthful, I'm kind of a skeptic I mean, just doing the research that I've done with Bigfoot over the last few years, I've gone from like a complete like total believer to like, well, I believe it. There's a possibility of it. You know what I mean? So, and I definitely don't want to run into a dog man down in the woods, but so that's why I'm kind of still on the fence on it. But like I said, that's why it's really interesting to have you on just to learn about.
Well, the thing of it is, it's a new cryptid. It's a new cryptid. Within the last 10 years is when it's actually been getting really, really popular. I mean, there's a lot of information of the sightings going all the way back into the 1800s, but they were very far and in between. But within the last 10 years, the sightings have kicked up 80% in 10 years. Even with us, when we first started out, we were getting, 1 or 2 sightings a month, reports coming in. I mean, we're getting 10, 15, 20 reports a day compared to how it was 10 years ago.
Now, is there hotspots for the Dogman?
Yeah, the biggest region of hotspot in the United States is the Northeast. And that is from Illinois going all the way over to New York State, from Michigan, Wisconsin, going down to Tennessee. This is the biggest hotspot in the country. Second hotspot in the country is Texas and the Louisiana, Alabama area. That's the second hotspot. The third biggest hotspot is the Four Corners area. And then you have a few sightings coming out of California. We hardly get anything coming out of Washington State or Oregon. That's heavy Bigfoot country there.
You think it's just because people assume it's Bigfoot, or they just don't?
Well, the thing of it is, I think so, because, like I said, when I was going back to my reports going back into the 80s, where people were saying, "Oh, it's a Bigfoot," and then I look at the reports, and it's obvious that it's not a Bigfoot that they're seeing. They see a large hairy creature. They probably only see it from the side or see it from the back. And if you're in an area like Washington State or Oregon, which is very well known for Bigfoot sightings on an everyday basis over there, that's what your mind's going to tell you that it is. It's a Bigfoot, unless you got a very good up close look at it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think gives credence to something like a Bigfoot potentially being real is you look back like pre-Columbian era, when a lot of indigenous people were occupied in North America, things like that. I think there's over 200 documented instances of indigenous tribes that that existed throughout the years. Some had no contact with each other. There's over 200 instances where tribes have a depiction of a creature whose description matches what we today would refer to as a Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Right.
What historical encounters or correlations like that exist of upright canine type creature or something that has like a similar description that you could point to?
There's not that many, honestly, in the Native American culture, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist because it's not in their culture. Native Americans, they interpret things different the way the white man does. Okay, so the biggest thing with Native American tribes is the skinwalker, or the what's the other one? Wendigo. Okay, those are the two biggest things. Now, a lot of Dogman researchers feel that the Wendigo and even possibly the sightings of skinwalkers are dogmen. It's a possibility. Now, with that being said, there's quite a few tribes like the Shawnee. We're here in Ohio, the Shawnee and the Cherokee. They do speak of a wolf that walks like a man. So we do know that. and there's a couple other out in the plain areas, Native Americans that there's a I can't think of the name of the tribe, but they have a lot carvings of like masks and things, and the typical wolf is just where the snout goes out, okay, where it looks like a wolf. This one, the head was much bigger and the snout was smaller coming out. It was more like a actual mask, and it was of a devil dog. So so that could be what they think what interpret probably a dog man or something to that effect. But when you go back in history, go back further, like I said, they're very far and in between on sightings, or even part of the population wasn't that many of them. I'm not saying it was a new cryptid; they were always here. They were probably, now when you look into the native in Canada, there's a lot dealing with dogman and their culture. So maybe these things were, up in Canada before they moved down, in the 1700s or something like that into the United States. And you're seeing very, very small sightings. And that's why a lot of these Native American tribes have never seen these things or even have any type of visual aid of the animal, as in a mask or some other type of character, or even some type of carving, on a stone.
And even back in there's some ancient European civilizations, I think maybe not the ancient Greeks, but somewhere in that region, a couple of those cultures, didn't they have stories depicting dog-headed
men? You have Greek mythology, Viking mythology, in England, even in Mesopotamia, even talks about a tribe of dog-headed men that they would trade with, that were able to communicate with them. So you have all this culture. Even China even has a legends of a dog-headed man. St. Christopher, the original St. Christopher in the Vatican Museum, the original St. Christopher has a dog head.
So would you use the same theory as like the land bridges? That's how they got from.
It's a possibility, yeah. It's a possibility.
So that's the flesh and blood. Now you also said they could be UFO too, or affiliated with UFO.
Yeah, what the interesting part about that is all the UFO related dogman reports that we've gotten have came from military people. Okay. I did this conference. I just got back from Iraq. Okay. I spent 8 months. I was in an Army hospital. I got head trauma and a spinal cord injury when I was there. And I was in the hospital for 8 months. And then I ended up getting out of the Army. And I end up, because I was getting back into the research, and I was asked to speak at a conference in Kentucky. So I went down there, and it was at the hotel there. It had a restaurant and a bar. Okay. So after the conference, so everybody's going into the restaurant and the bar to go eat. And everybody's sitting at the table. So I get up and I go to the bar. I wanted to get a drink. And there was a guy sitting at the bar. He was military. You can tell by the way his haircut, tattoos, things like that. And he said, what's going on here at the hotel? And I said, well, it was a paranormal conference. And he talked like ghosts and stuff. And I said, yeah. And he goes, are you, a ghost hunter and stuff? And I'm like, no, I'm not a ghost hunter. I do cryptid research. And, what's cryptid research? And I told him, Bigfoot, and I do a lot of dogman research.
Took him down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, shooting down the rabbit. And he's like, wow, dogman. Is that like a werewolf? And I'm like, yeah. So we're sitting there talking, and we were just talking about the different posts that we served on, and, just a lot of military stuff, getting acquaintance with each other. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, you're a brother. I think I can trust you. And he goes, I was former Special Forces. I was 7th Group. I got out, ended up working as a contract with the federal government. And my job was with other former Special Forces, Navy SEALs, combat air control from the Air Force, things like that. Our job was to recover down UFOs. That was our job. Okay. And if there was any extraterrestrial life. So he said that in the early 1970s, the United States got in contact with a new species of alien. So at that time, there was about 27 known different species, okay, that the United States has been in contact with. This particular species was canine, but it was very, very hostile. It was a predator, and it wore like a Halo-style body armor type suit, okay? No gloves, no helmet, no boots. Okay. So a downcraft came, they went and recovered X amount of live bodies. So they were so dangerous, in the facility they had here, they were killing the guards and all this other stuff. So the order was to get them out of the United States. So they put them in a facility in Honduras. So these were problem-solving entities, okay? But they had zero common sense, is the way he explained it to me. So I'm like listening to this story, I mean, the way he was telling it, man, it was just, I really believe this guy because, he just had too much detail and it was too together, and so they got out of this facility and they killed some of the personnel there, and it ended up going into like a small village and ended up killing the people there. So his job was to go down with his team and take care of the situation. So they went and ended up killing them all. But the way, like he said, he described them that, they were, he said, imagine a wolf, okay, a regular, timber wolf, and on a human's body, but had legs and hands like a dog. He said that's the way they looked. Now, what's so interesting about this, I talked to Linda Godfrey about this story. Linda told me that she had the same story told to her by a different person, not the same guy that told me this story, but by a totally different person. So I think that kind of validates the story. So I was kind of interesting, about the subject. Okay. So I had something flash right in my head. Okay. I remember that in Star Wars that came out in 1978. Now, you have to understand, George Lucas was a Mason. Okay. Majority of everybody that ran NASA were Masons. So George Lucas was able to see a lot of stuff that even people in NASA who's been there for years have not been able to see. So this is where he got a lot of his stuff for the show. So in one particular scene, he has two werewolves that's inside the bar. Okay, they're in Star Wars. Now, Mike, what's his name? Dave Baker, I think, was the guy that designed them. He, in an article I was reading, that he was told to specifically make those. These were not generic masks that he made just to throw in for the show. He was specifically told by George Lucas to make these particular two werewolf style creatures. Okay. So if you look at the early stuff on Star Wars, some of the books that came out in like 1979, 1980s, there is a werewolf figure that's based on the werewolves that are in Star Wars which is wearing a body armor outfit. And I actually have a picture. I end up taking a picture of it, and it has no boots on. It has no helmet, no gear or gloves, and it's totally identical to the description of what this guy saw. So, I mean, is there a connection there? It's a possibility. Now, another thing that gives it credibility, there was a book that was written that was called Dark Mission by Richard Hoagland. And in that book, he talks about the connection.
What happened here?
I don't know. He was up there. You are,
There he
Jody.
is.
There
What
you go.
happened
Okay.
there?
All right, a little
Okay.
hiccup. So
Yeah.
go on.
So in his book, there's a picture of when the Apollo 11 was on the moon. Apparently, they found a crashed ship in a crater, and there was parts of a robot's body allegedly that was there. So there's a color picture. If you Google Richard Hoagland's Dark Mission alien or robot's head, you'll see it. It's identical to CP3O's head. It's 100% identical to CP3O's head. It's fascinating. So, you know, did Richard? I mean, yeah. Did he know anything about, you know, these creatures back in 1978 when he did Star Wars? Who knows?
That story actually gives credibility to the Patterson-Gimlin film, not for nothing, because if Lucas was able to see these costumes and design something, and then they come out with Chewbacca, you know, which doesn't, the Patty film, Patty looks much better than Chewbacca, I think, in my opinion. But
well, yeah, I mean, look at this, okay? When you look at the Patterson film, okay, all these idiots are coming out saying, you know, it was a gorilla suit. Okay, you look at Chewbacca. Now, Chewbacca, his character is based off of a Bigfoot. Okay, that's $100,000 costume by some of the best special effects and people in Hollywood. Okay,
yeah,
you look at the Jack Link's, right, and you look at Jack Link's Bigfoot costume, which I think it was $120,000 to make. Okay, and you look, you know, it's in what was it though? I think the only closest costume in existence that was very close to the Patterson film was the Bigfoot costume from Letters from the Big Guy. That costume is the only thing that's close to comparison to what the Patterson film as far as good costume. So 1970 or 1968, you had Planet of the Apes come out, and that was state of the art. That stuff was okay compared to to the Patterson film, and also look at this when you're doing a Patterson film. Okay, 1968. Okay, women in the United States weren't really still considered second-class citizens. They were like stay at home, make babies, and you work in the kitchen. So if you're going to make a monster film, you're going to go out looking for a monster. Why would you do a female? Yeah. You want a monster. You want a big guy. Okay. Not a female. Mm-hmm. Okay. Unless he was smart enough to sit there and think, well, hey, let's do a female because that might be a little bit more believable. But when you look at the Patterson film, there's so many human characteristics to that. The breast, the butt is a human characteristic. The foot is a human characteristic.
Yeah, the calves too.
You see the muscles moving under the fur. I mean,
yeah. It's that is a 100% original film. It's 100% original. And for what's I can't think of the name of the costume company now. That was posted. The costume, the gorilla costume, came from.
I know what you're talking about. The name.
Yeah, I can't. It was just right on the tip of my tongue. I mean, with him coming out with, Bob and stuff were on this and talking about how it was fake. It's just that thing wasn't fake. That was legitimate.
We got a couple of. Yeah, I'm sorry to butt in here. We actually got a couple of questions in the chat I wanted to get to. Nancy Malcolm, this is pretty interesting actually. Nancy Malcolm asks, "Why is Dogman so vicious when dogs and men get along so well?"
It's an apex predator, I think. I think a lot of it is that it's not a dog. It does have canine characteristics to it, but it's an apex predator. I even thought that question myself. If man and dog are best friends, why couldn't you just come here, boy, come here, and he comes over wagging his tail. I don't know. I can't answer that other than that it's simple. It's an apex predator, and it just maybe it can scent. Dogs can sense fear in a person. They can scent pain. They can tell you're sick and things like that. This thing feeds off of fear on people. I think that's what part of the supernatural part of it. It's just evil.
Then Scarborough Sasquatch Station asks, "How far in the distance can Dogman project their infrasound from where they're standing towards affecting / hurting human beings?" First off, is there even any documented instances that they could release infrasound? I know it's a bit of a theory that floats around.
It's been a big theory for years. As far as I know, and talking with other researchers, that it's probably, and this, like I said, is complete theory. Okay, 40 to maybe 50 yards. Some people believe that it could be 100 yards. I can't see that. I think they would have to be much, much closer. And especially, you have to understand, when you're in the woods, especially at night, this thing has perfect night vision. It can see around the trees and the bushes. You can't. So this thing could be very up close to you and you wouldn't know it. And it's putting off that.
Sure. So you were generous enough to let us show some alleged photos, alleged footprints, that you've collected over the years. I definitely love to start firing through a couple of those now. Bill, Vince, let's start. Throw up photo number 1. Photo 1.
Yeah, that's one of the tracks from Germantown, Ohio, and you can see the size of it. It's a pretty big track. You should have another. Hopefully, you have another clearer one that was with that. Nope, that's not it. This.
You were saying?
Yeah, the second track came out of, I believe that was Michigan. On that particular one, there was a whole set of tracks. This one here, I think that one came from Kentucky, and I think that while we were looking at that one, we can only see maybe 3 or 4 toes in that, and we believe what that particular one is a Bigfoot track. But it was in an area where there was a lot of Dogman sightings. But if you look at what we consider a class 3 or a type 3 Dogman, his foot is very human and his legs are very human. So we have a lot of tracks that we have there is very human like that, but there are only 3, possibly 4 toes. Most of them are 3. And like I said, on this particular picture, we believe that there was only 3 toes on this one right here. So we kind of, I think, determine that as a possibility of a Bigfoot or possibility of a Dogman, because you can't see too much detail there. This one
here, it seems pretty similar in appearance to the previous one.
Right. This is what I'm talking about right here. Now this was in Kentucky. Excuse me. There was a woman that had a very big farm, and she found these tracks out in the field in the snow, and she measured all the tracks. There was a bunch of them, and they were walking in one beautiful straight line. A couple of days later, when there's still snow on the ground, it actually came up to her house, and actually came up onto her porch.
So that's part of trackway.
Very scary. So whatever it was picked her scent up and was able to follow her home. So there's a whole series of these pictures.
Wow.
Yeah. This one here, like I said, I believe that one came out of Michigan. And if you can see, they're elongated toes. Okay, there's 4 of them in that picture. Now, what's so unique about this picture, like if you look at a Bigfoot, it's all one clean spot. There are pad marks up on the front part, and there's a pad mark on the back, which is very typical of a dogman.
What's the next one that we have? We'll just we saw that one. And what's interesting, like about this track here, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't most like coyote tracks, wolf tracks, no more than 3 to 4 inches long, or something like that?
They're very small.
Yeah.
This particular track, what's kind of so unique about this, okay, is it's only 3-toed. Okay, now you can see the human tracks walking over in front of it. It's not a bear track because there's no claw marks. There's a possibility that might be a big cat track. Okay, but the problem with that is there's been no sightings of pumas or cougars in that area.
Wow, that's really
cool. What was it? Blue Crossroads want to know if that in Kentucky, the one from Kentucky, if it was near LBL, Kentucky.
Yeah, it was about 1.5 miles from LBL.
Was it Land Between the Lakes, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Land Between the Lakes, yeah.
God, I'm good.
Yeah, so let's get on to some of those alleged photos of this creature that we have here. Bill, if you want to start throwing those up.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, show the
close up.
show the original one.
Yeah. Nope, that's not it.
There we go.
Now, this is the upper trail. Okay, where the guy is down there, and you can see right between the 2 trees, there's a dog, and right behind there's another person walking the dog. Okay, so there's this young girl, daughter of a friend of ours, was in where you can see like there's a stream right there. Now, this is a metro park up in Akron. Now, at this particular metro park, going all the way back to 2000, I want to say 2012, they've had sightings of a dogman, several dogmans in this park. I even spoke with a ranger that actually saw one in that park. And there's a condominiums when you go out the main part of the park. There's condominiums there, apartment complex, where these things actually go out and dumpster dive for food over there. People have seen them. I've got drawings where people actually almost hit them crossing the road there. So the girl was walking up. She heard the people talking. She heard the dog bark. So she looked down and she saw this large object at a kneeling position stand up. That's the back of it, looking down at them, and it's moving. So she grabbed her cell phone out, snapped a real quick picture, called her dad, say, hey, I think I see one of those things in a park. Her dad tells her, get home. So she ends up going home. She was like 19 at the time. So if you go back to the other picture, it's kind of like I said, it's a blow up. It's kind of a blow up of it. You can see where it's hit. There's a log that's kind of hiding the bottom parts of the leg, and there's a log that's in front. So it was kneeled down between the 2 down logs.
How long ago was this?
Just what, about a month ago?
Okay, well, so this is really
Yeah,
recent.
A month
yeah,
ago.
it's just recent. Yeah.
And, one of the things that another thing too that I really think gives credence to, like, certain phenomena like Bigfoot and things like that, especially when you have like large swaths of eyewitness reports to go through. If you really like sift through the available data, certain patterns start to emerge, and some of these
Mhm.
patterns, would be just like, near impossible, probably arguably near impossible to coordinate, or to pull off, especially if it's from people throughout the years who have, like, never had any contact with each other.
Right.
Kind of patterns, just like through all the sightings of this creature, that all the reports and sightings that you've had, what are some like particular patterns, whether it's just like, time, like time of day, weather patterns, things like
Well,
that out to
well,
you?
the thing of it is, like, we have charts that we do.
Mhm.
Okay, broken down between season, broken down between morning, noon, and night, broken down to different times of the day. Okay, so what we found out, there are just as many sightings during the day than they are at night. It's about equal. Okay, when it comes to the time of day, you're looking at mid afternoon is probably one of the biggest times a lot of the sightings take place. Okay, then second becomes the overnight. Now, time of the year, really, there's not a really big major difference. It's a little bit more in the fall, a little bit more in the spring, summer, and then winter. So yeah, so there's patterns, and like when we did these charts that's up on our website, this is a yearly. You're looking at from a past year going up to the following year, just to get that data to do that.
So are they primarily carnivores, or they eat meat, or are they like Bigfoot? They eat pretty much everything: berries, nuts.
Well,
And...
the thing about predators, if the food source is there, they're going to stay. So most of the food source that's going to be there is going to be the small rodents, rabbits, raccoons, rats, things like that. Your bigger prey, deer. So roadkill also becomes part of that protein that they get. Now, this animal, and it's the same thing with Bigfoot. And people think that Bigfoot, sleeps all day and he goes out at night looking for food. No, you can't. These animals, they get up, they go look for food, they get their belly full, they sleep for a couple hours, and they do the routine all the way over. They're going to spend every waking moment they can looking for food. They have to get that protein, and they have to get that calorie intake in to, sustain their day. If they're going to go out looking for a bigger meal like a deer, okay, and they're going to have to chase this thing down, they're going to have to get that protein that they need in that food source and that energy just to be able to chase down that deer at night. Because that deer, he'll sit there and eat anything. He'll eat the leaves, he'll eat the grass. So he's getting his protein and he's getting his food, so where he's going to be able to run a lot quicker. So this whole thing that sleep at night or sleep during the day and go eat at night, there's just no way. And even the theory of hiding their tracks, I don't believe that, because like I said, they don't have time to worry about that. They're there looking for food, they're looking for water. That's taking away time for that, to hide tracks and things like that. So
Let's look at a couple. Look at a couple more of those photos you sent us. Guys in the back, if you could. No.
okay, this is a Bigfoot one. I just threw that in there
Okay.
because I knew we were going to talk about Bigfoot a little bit. Now, this is a cemetery that is up the road from where I live.
Mhm.
We had, I can't think of the name of the president, that is buried right up in this area here too. And so when you go to see his tomb, you kind of have to like walk up a bunch of concrete steps to get up on top where this cemetery is. Now, The last person buried in that cemetery was in the late 1800s. Okay, so it's just an old cemetery. No one should be up there. One of our team members is fascinated with old cemeteries, goes in there to take pictures, hopefully to pick up orbs, things like that. She gets up on top of the steps and she sees what she said was a gorilla digging up against the tree line. And so she snapped the picture and then, took off. And if you go to the next picture, which is a blow up of it, you can see the arm digging down into the grave or down into the ground. You got the head. You can see the dark ears. You can see the face. You can see like the arms got a lot of massive hair, kind of like a gorilla. So it's kind of like digging in there. But this was taken a few, maybe 8 years ago. It was with a digital camera. And if you look at the picture, okay, you can see the pixels. Okay, so if you look up from the head and go to the right a little bit, you kind of see like a man's face. You see the bottom of the nose, the lips, the mustache, the eyes, and right beside him, you see an alien with the two big eyes. That's just the pixels that kind of makes that look like there's people there. But the tombstone and the creature. But yeah, she said it was a gorilla digging in grave. So we think it was a Bigfoot that she saw.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, this that's one of the pictures, but that's not the first one. It's a bigger view. Keep going. Right there. This was back in October of last year. I was filming for a television show on Dogman, and I was waiting for the production team to get there. So I'm out in the woods walking. This big branch comes flying right in front of me. It's like 6 feet long branch, and I hear this growl, like a dog's growl. And I turn and look in that direction where I heard the growl, and where that big fat tree is, something just dropped, something big and dark just drops to the ground. So I started snapping some pictures, and you can go back to the pictures. And this is one here, right here. You can see the dark object. It kind of looks like a snout there, where it's looking kind of at you a little bit. And next picture. And here's another picture of it. Now this one here, you can't really tell, but the head's there, the face, and the body, and like the shoulders are kind of up like this in that particular picture. So I don't know if this was a Bigfoot or a Dogman. You can go to the next picture.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
Yeah, so this, I got this picture here where it's looking right at me. It looks like the hands covering the face like this, but you can definitely see the eyes. You can see the shine from the skin and the head. So I don't know what that was. It was big. Because like you said, it was big enough for me to see it hit the ground. So it was hiding down into the bush there. So I didn't go up to it or anything like that. So I kind of moved back about 40 yards so where I can still see if it gets up and move. And I sat there for a while waiting, and finally I moved out. So later that night, when the production team got there, we went out there to that area, and just to make sure that, it wasn't something mistaken or anything like that. But yeah, you can see where something was laying there on the ground there.
Something. Let's move on to one of the other ones. Try to get photo or pick one. I think I had it labeled on as up there. Bill Vince. Wow. That's really, really interesting. So, like, how often do you get, like, like photographic evidence like that? Like, is it something that happens like occasionally and people just, don't want, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind this one?
Yeah, this one is from JOEDY National Forest in California. Now, what's so unique about this picture? Okay, there was a guy who was a huge Star Trek fan. Now, Star Trek filmed a couple episodes in this forest in one particular area. So there's a trail there. So he's going down the trail to go look at the area where the episodes were shot. So you can, in the first picture, you can see the object. Now there was two people standing there. Okay, when in that same area as he was walking by, because he waved at him. So as he's walking up, he hears the people scream. So he comes back down the trail and they're not there, and this thing is standing there. So he pulls his cell phone out, takes a picture of it. Okay. So you can see the close up of the picture. You can see the high pointed ears. It's not a bear. Okay. Because the shape of the body, because the mouth is open on this thing. That's where kind of like where the white there is. But the arms are bent inwards on this character. It has a very smooth shaped body that goes down like this. And I did a comparison between that and a bear standing, and it's definitely it was not a bear. So he doesn't know if this thing actually attacked or did anything to those two people because he couldn't see them after he took the picture and left. So our California team went and talked to him. They got his cell phone. They did metadata on his cell phone to make sure that there's no altercation or anything done with the picture. And what was standing there was 100% standing there. The GPS, all that stuff shows. The photograph was not altered at all.
Wow, something.
So there is an actually closer picture that gives much detail. Now this here, Greg Yotes took this picture out in Indiana.
He's in your organization, right?
He works with us. He's not a member, but he works with us. He took that picture, and that's a really interesting picture with you see a really good view of the face, the eyes, and the high pointed ear. It's a very unique photograph.
I know, where was this taken again?
In Indiana, northern Indiana.
Yeah. Then let's go back to that other one we just had, 29 up. Yeah, what the hell is that?
Well, this one was sent to us. Now, this woman said that she was driving down the road and she saw this thing running down this field. Okay, so she stopped the car and she was able to snap a picture of it. The story behind it's kind of unique, but I don't know about the photograph. One of our other team people put the photograph on there, hoping that somebody would come up a little bit more information about it. But it's I don't know. I can't tell you. I've never seen anything like that. It's definitely not a Dogman. It's definitely not a Bigfoot. I don't know what type of cryptid it is. It's got long arms and short legs. So I don't know.
Where is this taken? Where was this?
I'm not sure where this particular picture was taken because we have a second one from a different location.
Don't they have like sheep squatch out in the Midwest somewhere?
Yeah. So that was one of the first things we thought of, but that's a cryptid I have a real big issue with existing. But there was another photograph that was sent to us from another location of one in the field that was really identical to that. So I don't know. It's an odd picture.
We have a couple of people in the chat saying it's smoke or smoke screen or that it's a wood carving.
I think me personally, like I said, I don't think it's real. Like I said, we had one of our members put it on the site. hoping to gather some information about it, because we did receive another picture from a different location. So, it was very similar to that particular picture there, but it was at a different angle, and it was much further back because there was a fence there, and it was on the opposite side of the fence. So, I don't know. Like you said, the only reason why it's on there because we were hoping to get a little bit more information about it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So does look like we are running a little low on time right now.
Okay.
Before we do that, I'd like to end with that cemetery video that you sent us. I don't know, we're having some technical difficulties with it earlier. Here we go.
Yeah.
So watch this. So why don't you just walk us through what's going on here?
Okay. This is a cemetery in Akron, and there were these two girls. Their mother actually was the one that sent us the video. Now, the two girls, they go there for lunch. Well, one of them was off work, and she went to pick her friend up with her daughter, and they went to the cemetery to go eat, and she saw this thing digging in the on a grave. Now, you see the car. Now, that car is actually much further back from how that picture, the video is. Okay, it looks like it's close, but actually it's not. There is a camera that looks right down on there. Now, what this thing did, and I actually have the photographs of the grave, what it dug into, and photographs of the grave after it was filled back in. It dug a hole about 2 feet across, about 2 feet down. Okay, now there was nothing in the grave other than the remains of ashes. Okay, because see, in Ohio, if you bury something in the ground, it has to be 6 foot under. Okay, right. It has to be like a grave. So whatever it dug, it did not dig out of the grave there. So there's a big wood line in the back there, okay, where this thing comes through. Now, the people at the cemetery said this is not the first time that this has happened. They said that this thing is some type of werewolf. So if you look at this picture, you can see it has high pointed ears and it has long fingers. So this is not a person digging in the grave. This is some type of animal, because it's solid color. It's not like you would tell that you'd be able to see if it was wearing shirt or pants or something like that. But just the head alone, you can tell that there's something unique about that.
And that motion it's making, though, it didn't look like a digging motion to you, because that's kind of what I thought at first. But then I considered the solid color, and it was the point. I know it was
right.
Pointed ears.
Yeah, it's digging in there, and it's looking right at them. It sees them filming, and it's digging. Me personally, I'm sorry, I would have got out the car with my camera and walked up. That's the type of person I am. If this thing kills me, I got it on camera. I'll be the first person to die on camera from a werewolf, and that's the way I look at it. So.
Oh, yeah, well, if you do that, you won't be able to come back on our show again in the future. So. All right, Jody. Well, listen, really appreciate you spending this last hour and change with us. It looks like we're running out of time, but really, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Jody.
Education.
I had a good time, guys.
Yeah, educating us on this phenomena. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Remember to subscribe, share, all that mumbo jumbo. From Behind Tall Trees. We'll be back 2 weeks from now. Jody, thanks again.
Yeah, it's Brendan and Carter. Isn't that Brendan and Carter's show?
Yeah. They're doing that. Who's there? Who do they have on?
Ken Johnson.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. All righty. Well, that's all we have for tonight. Bill, play us out.
Bye, everybody.
Good night from Behind Tall Trees. If you enjoyed the previous program, subscribe to the channel, hit the